what were the notes on the morning that you shot in the house?
All right, so this is a story that I was alluding to. Well, I wasn't alluding to it yet, but the story behind that is you get these notes, and you don't. At the end of the film, you know it was actually Halloween because we shot until October 31st, so we know the date, and we're like, today's the last day. We get in this car. They're like, don't really talk to each other in the car. Don't talk to us. We're going to bring you to a new set of wood. Set up the tent. And we'll give you the notes. So they leave. It's getting towards dusk, and I open my canister, and it says.
And that, my friends, is what we call a teaser. Did you really think that I was going to share right up front what the ending of the Blair Witch Project meant and what really happened from one of the two actors that was in the scene? Contraire, my friends. You know me better than that. But you also know that this is going to be one heck of an episode, and you're going to want to stay till the end. Tonight, we feature Michael C. Williams, the actor from the Blair Witch Project, and my buddy, another actor, Kyle Carvin. Stick around for a great cinematic audio experience.
Darkness closes, no fear. Ghosts and shadows, they draw near. No retreat, just bring the fight. Hosts Bob and Kyle, conquer your fright. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. They see the past, scientists digging with quantum math. Ghost hunters rage against the night. Hosts Bob and Kyle shine the light. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. Alien visits, stories unfold. Near-death journeys, bold and cold. Akashic whispers, truths revealed with hosts Bob and Kyle. Mysteries unveiled. Afraid of nothing, that's the shout. Paranormal, no doubt. Life and death will break it down in this rebel podcast town. Tune in, you rebels, catch the vibe. Afraid of nothing, listeners join the tribe.
So this is a great episode for me. I big fan of like The Walking Dead, which Kyle was in. And you guys may know the trivia that I don't know if it's still true, Kyle, but for a while you had the most kills by a guest actor, right? Is that still true?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's old news or not. I haven't checked, but at one time anyway.
Yeah. And our special guest, which is a friend of Kyle's, Michael C. Williams. And if you're not familiar with the name, you would definitely be familiar with some of his work, most notably the Blair Witch Project from 1999, which was iconic in so many ways. So welcome to the show, Michael C. Williams.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be
Yay.
here. What's up, dude?
What's up? Hey, so you're married? Did you have 2 kids? 1 kid now? What's the
kids? Look out for them because they're in the film entertainment world. Mia just graduated from Tisch, musical theater actor, and my son Dean's up at Syracuse, middle of I guess he's like the middle of school. He's like just finished his sophomore year. He's a filmmaker. Wants to be a DP.
So they're probably, as part of their film school, seeing what you did, right? Like 26 years ago or whatever. I mean, that was just like an indie grassroots thing that blew up and created a new subgenre, right?
They've always been cool about it. They didn't care too much for many, many years. And then, they took an interest to see like, hey, what was that actually like once they were about, I don't know, somewhere between 16 and 18. They kind of made a realization like, oh, this is pretty cool. Can you talk a little bit about this? And I love to talk about it with them because there's a lot of lessons there. They're pretty cool about it, but they're more talented than I am. So that's also helpful.
Well, yeah, but you know what? When it comes to horror pictures, there's like two images, from that film. It's it's Heather in her hat with the wide open, scared eyes, and it's you at the end staring, at the wall in an abandoned house. Man, it's like two of the most iconic pictures in horror. So it's that's awesome. Let's start with just who you are today. So today, 26 years after the Blair Witch Project, what are you doing today, and what's your focus and your passion?
So it's interesting because I am an educator right now first, but not never, but haven't let go of entertainment. I still am an actor. I still work in film and TV, although I do it sort of around a different schedule. Like with my education, I'm a counselor. I went back to school in my mid-30s. I had a lot of help growing up from my school counselor, and now I'm helping kids in that light on my own. So I'm working for a public school and have been there for many years. And I think from 2010 to 2018-ish, I just let entertainment go. I was raising my kids. I had a different career. I was still invested and still geeking out about acting, but just really on my own. Then I got a call from a small agent, and he said, hey, you want to work with me? And I said, well, I don't really do it anymore. And he said, why not? I said, I'm on a school calendar. He said, what about summer? I said, sure. So he sent me on an audition for a show called FBI by Dick Wolf. And I booked it, and it was like, okay, I'm back. And ever since then, I've been doing projects, when I can in the summer, school breaks, things like that. Recently did a film called Ghost Game, which is out there. I'm about to shoot something, a short called 6th Avenue, which we're working on in August here in New York. So it's fun. It's exciting. I still love what I do. I also teach acting. I have an acting studio where I teach kids comedy improv because I think that's really helpful for any actor, and really kids sort of just get the devices out of their hands for a couple of hours a week. I just finished a scene study class up in the Hudson Valley with adults. I had 10 adults doing scene study, and that's actually how I met Kyle, because probably about 20 years ago I offered a scene study class in my hometown, which is where Kyle and I met, and he took that class many, many moons ago. So I'm still doing a lot of that as well.
You know what? You just hit my second question too. How you and Kyle met, so that's great.
Well, that was like I had just moved to Hawthorne, and I forget where we were before, but I was living somewhere. Oh, I was living in Connecticut. That's where I was. I went from Connecticut to Dobbs Ferry, and then looking for a new place. Ended up in Hawthorne, and also was looking for a day job because I think at the time I was working at like a Planet Fitness, and I had to get there at 3 a.m. or whatever, so it was awful. But
was it the one in White Plains?
It was the one in White Plains, yeah. So
you start taking my class, and you're like, and I'm also.
Well, I saw a flyer. Yeah, you had a flyer somewhere. I don't know if I saw it at the train station or somewhere.
Oh, we had them everywhere.
I was like,
that was before social
acting
media.
Seems cool. Yeah, exactly. It was before. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's how we met. I went to one of his classes,
and then I got him a job moving furniture with him.
And that's right. That segued into.
I never liked waiting tables as an actor. So all those years as an actor, I basically drove trucks and loaded furniture and drove them up and down the coast. And yeah, Kyle, I don't even remember when you were there. If I was a driver at the time, I must.
Yeah, you were. You were like one of the drivers everybody wanted to be with because they were like you're one of the the squad leaders or.
Well, you know what, Michael, you should have. Kyle has a great gig on the side on his Power Seller, right? He goes to a lot of places.
That's right.
So that's probably a lot easier. You should have him. He drives a truck now too. He should probably teach you that. You guys could make him.
Listen, I've watched a couple of his YouTube videos. He's no joke with that stuff, and he gets to see the country, which I love.
Oh yeah, you can do it anyway.
Oh yeah, he's he goes on those. If it's every summer, Kyle, that you take a month or two off and go on kind of a solo journey, or.
Yeah, I mean, up until, this is the first summer that I had, I have a 10-month-old now. So he kind of ruined everything. But...
Damn it, kids.
I mean, look, I just said from 2010 to 2018, I was just trying to raise kids and,
Yeah, that's right. I'm getting a late start. But no, it actually, I am able to go on like a 2-weeker, and I'm leaving this Friday, so it's kind of like old times.
Nice. So for the audience members who are under a rock and much younger than myself, I'm in my 60s, early 60s. Michael, can you please reintroduce our audience to the Blair Witch Project? There's so much that film did to break ground, and I'd love to hear about if you could describe what it is and then the process. So we'll go into that.
So title card basically describes it all. It's in 1994. 3 student filmmakers went out into the woods to film a legend about a local witch. 3 years later, their footage was found. And then you start watching their footage. So it's the term found footage, I believe, comes from the last sentence in that title card, which is their footage was found.
Wow.
Which I didn't make that realization on my own. Ed Sanchez, the director, told me that like a year or two ago. And I'm like, wow, that really is probably where the term found footage comes from. I can't say that we were definitely the first, but we were one that worked, and it worked well. And it was the dawn of really the internet, where people could jump on and look up what it was, and then it would lead you to a website, and the website was all legend that you couldn't tell if it was real or not. We had a segment on something called Split Screen, which was John and Janet Pearson's show, and they were big in the independent film world at that time. They had helped Spike Lee at their early stages, and they put a teaser on their show Split Screen. I forget what channel it aired on, but that drew interest to the website. And it just kind of took on a life of its own after we got into Sundance, and we thought, oh, we have something really special here. And then by that summer, there was a tape going around where, an old VHS tape where people thought they were watching basically a snuff film, that these kids got lost in the woods. And then they all had to go see it for themselves. We actually hid, once the film came out, we were not permitted to speak to press. We were allegedly dead. We were listed as dead on IMDb. We used our own name.
Oh my God.
It was very confusing to audiences. So it worked. It worked because it just took the summer by storm that year, 1999.
That's crazy because the internet was just coming alive. It's before cell phones, and you guys used it perfectly. I mean, to set up the myth and the interest. And when I just watched it again a couple nights ago, and I'm watching the open. I'm like, wow, there's no opening credits,
Right.
And then I'm watching there's no closed captions, and then at the end there's credits, But yeah, it was totally. There's some stuff in there. I was like, wow, they just go right into it. There's no opening credits. You're right in. You're seeing this, and you're in that world right
There's really
away.
no music used throughout the whole thing either. It's just us and a video camera and some hi-8. Initially, when we got cast, it was supposed to be that the footage you're watching to this day was supposed to be intercut with interviews of cops and firemen and family members. We were only supposed to do like 20 minutes of an hour and a half film interspersed with a camera on sticks, documentary style. And then it was like, you guys will be 45 minutes, and this other stuff, which they shot called Phase 2, be another 45 minutes. And then eventually they just decided that the footage stood on its own. And so they had something really different there. I can't take credit for any of the legend or lore or any of that. I really was hired as an actor out of New York City in an open call and went down and shot a film for 8 days. I got trained on the DAT, which is an old sound system. And Josh got trained on the 16, and Heather started writing because she definitely did write some of it as far as what she's reading out of her journal and what she's reading as her character in front of the 16. So we had a few days of prep, and then we got into the woods and shot it. It was pretty cool.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is an Afraid of Nothing paranormal podcast alert.
$10 merch. $10 merch.
That's right, podcast fans. If you go to our website, afraidofnothingpodcast.com, and click on the store tab, you too can find now $10 merch on the website. So not only can you get the great stuff like the hoodies and the t-shirts and the blankets and the glasses, you can also get stickers and bumper stickers and, well, a whole lot more. You need to see it yourself. But just remember this.
$10 merch
is now available at the Afraid of Nothing podcast store. Check it out. And remember, never be afraid to look good.
the script, did you just have rough guidelines and you just kind of went with it, or how did the script unfold?
We really improvised 90 to 99% of it. What we would get were notes in film canisters. So before GPS was a thing that everybody had, Greg Hale was a producer on it. He was a Special Forces retiree, and he had access to a GPS system, which was a little handheld device, bigger than a cell phone, but, smaller than a bread box, as they say. They went out and scouted, let's call it 20 different waypoints, they called them. So you start at waypoint 1, you do whatever the event is, set up a tent or whatever it is, and then you put in, okay, we want to go to waypoint 2. And it would show us waypoint 2 is 1.5 kilometers northeast. We had a compass. We dialed it into northeast, and march off we go. We get to the second waypoint, and in that, maybe there's another event, and behind the event there was always a milk crate, the old plastic milk crates, with an orange Dayglow bicycle flag sticking out of the milk crate. And in the milk crate were 3 canisters, 35 millimeter film canisters, and each of them had our initials on them. So my inside was rolled up was a note. Mine would say, Mike, no matter what they say, all you want to do is walk east. Heather's would say, all you want to do is walk south. And Josh's would say, all you want to do is walk west. So they basically instilled conflict between the characters. They were more in depth than that as we went on. Some of them were 2 sentences and some of them were half a page. What they would do is they'd get us through the end of the day with all these waypoints. Then we would leave all the tapes from the day and the old batteries that we used in the same milk crate by our tent. They would come while we were sleeping, pick them up, pop them in the VHS, watch them to see where our characters were, create new notes for the next day. They had an idea of where they wanted the story to go, but they also needed to see what was going on with the 3 of us. Put fresh batteries back in the milk crate, put fresh tapes in the milk crate, put some food in there for the morning. They go back, they go to sleep. We wake up. Now we got all this fresh stuff. And okay, now we're ready for waypoint 3. So it was really directed through these notes, which was pretty cool. Wow. And they were always shadowing us. They were always within voice distance, if you would, except for one time when it fell apart, which is a whole nother story. But that's basically how
It's almost like an escape room out in the woods. You get all these little.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really does. That's a good analogy for both of you because I've heard a lot, as you imagine. But you're right. It's like a live action escape room survivor show. Let me just tell you about the woods. People are like, were you really lost? The answer is no.
Yeah.
I mean, we crossed roads and airplanes were flying overhead. One morning there was a jogger jogging by. They were state parks.
Okay.
The reason where there's no fires is because we're not allowed to light fires. So we came up with the idea the light attracts the witch, so don't light fires. We did one fire on the first night, which was cheating, which was great because the scene worked. But if you think about it, why wouldn't you light a fire every night? And we just couldn't. So we had to validate why not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were fighting so much. I didn't even pick up on that. Jesus. Right. He's mad at her. She's mad at him.
So much conflict between the 3 of us. In fact, I was supposed to be I told you they watched the tapes. I was supposed to be taken out of the woods first, which I knew as an actor. And then I woke up and Josh was gone. And I was like, oh, wow, my part just got bigger because I got a whole nother day out here and he's gone. And it turns out that the dynamic between Josh and Heather, they were like, it's sort of too far gone. We got to get rid of him and keep Mike in there and see what happens. That was pretty interesting based on watching the tapes back.
Yeah, you were the disruptor, right? For the most part, in that film, or
good question. I don't really know. I just remember being like, let me just try and listen. I remember at the beginning I was just listening mostly, and I don't say a whole lot in the first couple of days where we're just sort of driving around and stuff. And then, once I start to insert myself, I feel like there's a time where I'm a peacekeeper once or twice. And then there's a time where I was the asserter because I decided to kick that map into the crew.
Yeah.
They didn't like that.
Yep.
And the map was a prop. It was, it wasn't an actual map. People get mad at me, like literally mad at me. Why did you do that?
God.
I got to go back a little bit because I don't think we ever talked about, you said it was an open call, which, I'm not sure how much of the audience even understands like the audition process, but that can vary. And an open call is, from my understanding, it's kind of an open audition where, there's like a casting, an ad that goes out, and any actors that see it I don't know if it's backstage or what it was back in the day.
It was
in backstage.
That's
yeah. So, and then any actor that sees, they show up at this address, and it could be 50 people, it could be 500 people. You never really know. And it's different because typically there's also finding auditions only through, like, you have to have an agent. So like an open call, just, you never know what's going to show up. And there's generally more people, I would say.
Yes.
But that aside, like, what was the audition? Like, what were you asked to do at the actual audition?
So I have heard that they auditioned 1,000 actors for this thing.
My goodness.
Between Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Florida. And in New York, I was at that open call through backstage, and I would say I saw hundreds of people, to your point, Kyle. And so it said in the ad, improvisational feature film. And if you think about what I said earlier about comedy improv, I did a ton of it. It's really thinking on your feet. It's really about relationships. People think it's about trying to be funny, which it's funny if you're invested in a ridiculous scene. But the first thing you got to do is listen and watch and respond to what's going on outside of you in the moment. And so I did a lot of that at SUNY New Paltz, where I trained as an actor. And we also would do a lot of scene work. So obviously, right, you're an actor, you're going to do scene work in plays, whether they're comedic or dramatic or musicals or whatever. And we would always improv the scene. I had an acting coach, Beverly Brum, God rest her soul, amazing coach that I had and I still love to this day. She would have us improv every scene that we ever did. So I had comedy improv. I had a bunch of improvisation background. And this thing said improvisational feature film to be shot in a wooded location. I love camping. I love the outdoors. I was like, I'm all about this. Let's go. And Kyle knows that about me. I'm still that way about the outdoors. We're similar in that way. And I'm just in much better shape. But otherwise, anyway. So I go to this open call and I get into the room. And as soon as I get into the room after waiting online, the director I was telling you about before, Ed Sanchez, is sitting behind a table, stacks of headshots with a couple of other people. And he says, there's no introductions. He just says, you've just served 15 years of your 30-year prison sentence. Tell us why you should make parole today. Well, I say this a lot and I mean it. I just thought about Shawshank Redemption and I was like, did my best impression of, I was a dumb young man, but I tried to be truthful about it. I totally stole it and it worked to get me a callback. And I want to say I had 2 or 3 weekends worth of callbacks where the numbers kept dwindling down and dwindling down and dwindling down. Morgan Freeman kind of saved me on that first audition. But after that, it was like, you'd bring 3 people in here, 2 guys and a girl every time. You're lost in the woods, go. You're at a diner and you're scouting, go. You just woke up and there's a pile of rocks outside your tent, go. So it was all improv. And it was quite fun, to be honest with you. And it was sort of invigorating. And I was like, this is really interesting. I have no idea what's going to happen with this thing, but it really seems fun. And they're obviously being very mindful about who they're casting because this is a very long process. And in fact, I was the last to be cast. Josh and Heather had gotten cast. And then there was another day where it was just my role was initially titled Bill. It was Bill, Jane, and John. And I was auditioning for Bill, the sound man. So it was like I remember me and a few other Bills. Then I remember me and one other Bill and Josh and Heather and just going in and out of this room with the same scenes. And eventually they didn't tell us that day. They just, okay, thanks very much. And about a week later, I was in a bar on the Lower East Side with a friend of mine, another actor friend, and my pager went off. For those of you who don't know what pagers are, I get a beep and you call a phone number. I call the phone number from a payphone and it's Ed Sanchez and he says, we'd really love to have you in this Black Hills project, I think it was called at the time. And so I was cast as the role of Bill. Eventually they asked us if we wanted to use our real names to make it authentic. We benignly and thought, no problem, sure. Not thinking anything of it. In hindsight, I don't have regrets in life. That would be one that I would change, though. I'd go back to Bill, which is why I'm a stickler for – I told them at least credit me as Michael C. Williams because that's my actor name. They made a mistake, credited me as Michael Williams. But Michael Williams is the name of the character, so there's no differentiation. And that becomes quite difficult when you're auditioning later as Michael Williams from the film that everybody thinks was real, including casting directors. So it was kind of a whole mess. A good mess to have, but kind of a whole mess. It was interesting. Because if you think about it, we were the first of our kind that people were looking at this thing. It didn't look like a real movie. It looked like real footage. So it was confusing to people. And honestly, probably still is.
Did you and the other actors talk about real life? Did you talk about the project? Or was there no talking? Was the like what was it life like on set when it was just you three? And also, did you, I guess, in that conversations, or did you or the filmmakers know that this was going to be? Did you have like an inkling of what you were doing in terms of that it was going to be a thing, or was this just feel like any other project?
I would answer to the first question that we definitely talked a lot as actors throughout the process. We came up with a code word fairly quickly because you want to differentiate, right? Especially when you're fighting, you want to make sure as an actor that the other actor is okay, that you're not actually hurting them. We're pushing, shoving, and screaming. And so we came up with a code word fairly quickly to break scenario, which was taco. And so I'd have to say taco, and I'd have to hear the other actors say taco so that we all knew everybody is okay. We're talking about this thing as actors now. What was great about shooting on, a camera, a video camera, was you could do it over. So I'd say taco, and you'd hear taco, taco. Oh man, I feel like I forced that. Can we just try that again? Like, let's give another option here. And so you do the scene again. We tried to stay in character as much as possible because it helped the film. But every once in a while, you talk about it, you'd laugh. We woke up and drank whiskey one morning ridiculously because we were young kids, So we definitely had differentiation between the actors and the characters. And then as far as did we know it was going to do what it did or an inkling of that, I wouldn't say by any stretch any of us would have thought it was going to be very, very successful or commercially successful. I honestly, while we were shooting it, felt like we had something special because when I was acting with the two actors, it felt very authentic. I felt like we were doing good work out there. I'm still proud of the work that we did as actors, as young actors. I'm proud of the filmmakers for taking a risk. We all trusted one another. We had something special. When we got into Sundance, I honestly thought that was going to be the pinnacle of sort of the success of the film, thinking it'll find a little niche market. It'll be maybe, like I said, people passing around videotapes. Now it's in Sundance, so there'll be more videotapes being passed around. Maybe one day you'll find it in Blockbuster. But I never did think it was going to be a theatrical experience. And then, of course, it became really the movie of the summer, I would say, in fairness.
So I understand this correctly. You guys directed each other. So the director you didn't get like notes as you're doing this. You guys basically directed each other, on these scenes. You're doing improv.
We didn't get any acting notes. We got character notes. So your character feels this way. Your character is this, and through the notes. But we didn't get any acting notes. That's why their process to audition was like, we've really got to get actors who feel authentic. That was the big thing. It was like, we want actors who we really believe are lost in the woods. We don't want any acting. It's all behavior. And I'm from the school of where acting is behavior. So, and I'm not, listen, there's times when I make it work and there's times when I don't, as Kyle would attest to, right? It happens where you're like, okay, well, right now I'm acting because I got to fake it till I make it. But when you get into the zone where you're behaving and you're really believing in those imagined circumstances, and they created imagined circumstances that were pretty easy to believe in because my other actors were so good. They were incredible to look at and say, oh, wow, look at this person doing. And the backdrop was the woods, night. You hear sticks and, leaves and rocks and weird things in the night, even if you're just camping on your own. And so now all you need to do is suspend your disbelief and think about those noises might be something that's haunting me. Sort of fun to imagine and believe in, especially if you're kind of a horror fan, which I am. I thought this is really a good backdrop to get these imagined circumstances, get the juices flowing. So, and to answer your question in the longest possible way I can, they did not necessarily direct us as actors. They gave us guidelines for the characters.
Much prefer those answers than to your first question. No. Second question, yes.
That sounds like the ideal actor's gig. It's like, okay, go in the woods. You guys figure it out. We'll leave canisters. You'll shoot it. You'll be the cinematographer. You'll be your own directors, your own sound. That sounds like a very unique deal. And what a great gig to start was that the start of your career, or had you already done other things before that?
Yeah, it was a playground. To your point, I always call it a playground. It was the beginning of my career. I had done other things to that point. I had done a bunch of theater in New York. Nothing big, but small little films in theater. I had done a couple of things through people that I met as a production assistant, because besides moving furniture, I didn't believe in waiting tables, because I felt if I can be a production assistant on anything that's TV or film, I'm going to get to know people who are making TV or film, which proved to be actually worthy, because it got me some connections where I was being able to be an actor, which was pretty cool. So it was very early in my career. Yes.
So how big was the crew? I mean, for indie films, Kyle, you know that the size of the crew you have, like for Popeye the Slayer Man. How big was your crew? It must have been pretty small. And how many days did you shoot? What was your shooting schedule?
There were 8 shooting days.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the crew, I think we were there for probably 11 or 12 days. The crew was probably about 10 or 15 deep, all said and done. Certain nights they needed more for gags, so there was probably more people there. We had a DP, Neil Fredericks, God bless him, rest his soul, great man, and he really showed Josh what the sort of style was, what they were looking for, and believe it or not, there's a little aesthetic to it that he kind of helped create. Ben Rock, production design, the stick men, and a bunch of those kinds of gags, the blood on the teeth in the satchel that Heather opens. Obviously, we had 2 co-directors, Ed Sanchez and Dan Myrick. Greg Hale, the producer, was always kicking around on set. There were some other producers who I don't remember meeting then, but Haxon itself was the Haxon 5. There were these Haxon guys were 5 filmmakers, producers, directors who banded together on this project in the early days. So there were quite a few, and then a lot of them were just really neighborhood friends of Ed and his wife Stephanie, who've been married for probably as long as I have, probably about the same amount of time as I have, 25 years or something. And they were dating, and she had a condo, so the condo that she lived in was home base. It was like home cooking,
How did you find that house at the end? Was that like Kyle, like for your film Popeye the Slayer Man, that old canning factory, it was in town. How did you come across that house?
That I don't know. They had scouted locations before we got there. I think a lot of that had to do with Ben Rock, the production design, because he did a lot of the painting in the house and the little kids' shoes and the handprints. That whole neighborhood came together to paint up and make that house creepier than it was. It didn't need much. It was creepy. It was an old Air Force base, from my understanding. There was an airline strip on there, and it was called the Griggs family. The Griggs family owned that house. I do know that. How they found it, I don't recall. However, I do know that it was in a different set of woods. It was in a different state park. So let's say we shot 8 days. On the 7th day, they come and get Heather and me and put us in a car and drive us to another state park. And I'm going, what the hell could possibly be in a different, right?
What were the notes on the morning that you shot in the house?
All right. So this is a story that I was alluding to. No, I wasn't alluding to it yet, but the story behind that is you get these notes, and at the end of the film, it was actually Halloween, because we shot until October 31st. So we know the date, and we're like, today's the last day. We get in this car. They're like, don't really talk to each other in the car. Don't talk to us. We're going to bring you to a new set of woods, set up the tent, and we'll give you the notes. So they leave. It's getting towards dusk, and I open my canister, and it says, Mike, tonight you'll hear a noise. When you hear the noise, follow it all the way up until Heather reaches you, and then run all the way down, leaving Heather behind. That's what my note said, something like that. So we had walkie-talkies, which we were seldomly using because we didn't want too much contact with the directors. But I had a direct question. I radioed Ed. I said, Ed, Mike, I really don't want to screw up the ending of your film. I really don't understand this note. I just want to make sure. He's like, Mike, trust me, you'll know what it is. When you hear the noise, just don't question it. And I'm like, yeah, but dude, it's the last night. I want to screw it up. He just said, Mike, get off the radio. Trust me, you'll know what it is. So I go to bed thinking it's a hill, because up and down, we're in the woods, right? I go to bed thinking it's a hill. I wake up. The noise is literally a click of a boombox, and it's Josh's voice screaming. The fact that it doesn't sound like that in the movie is insane, but it doesn't. It sounds like he's screaming. So I'm following this boombox through the woods. And the most authentic, I think I deliver a pretty authentic performance, but the most authentic line that I deliver in the entire film is, and I know you asked me not to swear, but I say, oh shit, it's a house. Because I make the realization while I look up at this house, oh, I've got to go in there. I've got to go all the way upstairs, wait for Heather to get to me, and then go all the way down, leaving her behind. And in fact, that's exactly what I did. So the note finally made sense. It kind of clicked at that moment.
Was there any hesitation to go in that place? Because it looked authentically insane, possibly unsafe.
I trusted that it would be safe, though when I walked in, it really didn't feel that way. I looked to my right. I don't think there was a floor in like the dining room. So to your point, I was more on adrenaline at that point. Like I knew it was the end.
Yeah.
I was, dare I say, excited to go in that house, but frightened as well. Like if I was ever going to be scared as an actor, I wasn't scared of a witch, but I knew the filmmakers were in there. And I'm like, what are they going to do now? Like, what is this movie? And when I ran all the way downstairs, as you see, Greg Hale, the producer I was telling you about before, he just grabs me and slowly brings me to the ground. And I know it's over. And he's like, you're good, you're good, you're good. So I just start like weeping with joy that it's done. Because it's a lot of emotion for 8 days. Like we're really going for it, right? And I just have this release of emotion. Like, oh, I got my eyes closed. I'm in his arms. I'm like, oh, it's over. This is so great. He's like, shh, quiet. Just go stand in the corner. Just go stand in the corner. So he's like, shut up. It's not over yet. So that's true. So he pushes me over in the corner. And then Heather comes down, of course, and sees me and screams. So a little known thing about that is the sound is on the high 8 camera. And if you recall, I am end scene. I am the one holding the high 8 camera and Heather is holding the 16. The 16 also has a light affixed to the top of it. So when Greg hits me, my hand hits the button on the high 8, which doesn't matter for the video, but what it does matter is that takes all the sound out. So there's no more sound. Heather's camera light on the 16 dies. So we have 2 technical glitches. So we do the scene. She screams bloody murder, but none of it is recorded. So we got out of the woods. We went to Denny's on Halloween, which was freaky in itself. We go to sleep. We wake up. We go back the next night rested and clean, and we reshoot the ending. And all of those screams that you hear her screaming is an authentic performance. The second time she's got to scream my name. We had to redo the running down the stairs bit, which is incredible because it comes out and it's so effective, but it was the second time that we did it. I don't know if they might have merged some of the first and second night, but the fact is we had to do it over.
So what is the ending? Because it's open to interpretation. What happened to Josh? Does the witch have other people kill, theoretically, do the murder for her so that she doesn't do it? And I guess there were some rumors that you killed Josh or Josh was, possessing you or whatever. So what was your take of what happens at the end of the movie?
My take is that there's an old hermit named Rustin Parr. Rustin Parr is this legacy of a guy who brought kids into his basement and murdered them one at a time while standing the next victim in the corner. My take is also that Heather knows the legend best. Mike and Josh, the characters, don't know the legend at all, which is true. They were hired on this by Heather. Heather knows the legend, right? The witch possesses Rustin Parr when Rustin Parr is alive and he kills all these kids in the basement. My assumption is Rustin Parr is long gone and dead. My other assumption is that the witch somehow gets Josh through some powers and slaughters him in the woods. She then possesses me. She makes me fall down and then sort of possesses me to go stand in the corner because she knows once Heather comes down, she knows the legend best. Heather knows that if she can't get me out of that corner, that I'm the kid standing in the corner while the other kid gets murdered. She knows she's the other kid. She's screaming, Mike, 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 turn around, Mike, Mike, Mike. She doesn't get what she wants because the witch has me possessed, and the witch murders her then and there, and likely after that's over, which we will never know. So I could still be roaming around those woods for all we know because you never watch me die, which I kind of like in case they want to bring me back.
Wow, yeah. So
that theory is very much based on what you see and what you hear in the movie. It's not any different. I love that people have theories because it means people are still talking about it 25 years later. But I don't typically agree with the Josh and Mike luring Heather or any of that stuff. It's possible, but I don't know that it works because, traveling, it's the same log. We've been walking south all day. I believe those things. I believe that there's some time twist. There's some magnetic pull in those woods by this evil creature that that is unexplainable by mankind. That's what I like to think.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm getting dumber in my old age because I always have to watch the ending explained videos, in a lot of movies that I watch. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's like I have to have someone explain it to me. It's like, what is your favorite found footage movie other than the Blair Witch Project?
Good question. I would say it's got to be Paranormal Activity. I think they did a really good job. I like the Hell House series, the first one. The first or maybe it was the second one I saw. I like that one. I just watched Frogman, which is a very small horror film that they did a nice job. It's a found footage film. It takes place, I want to say, in North or South Carolina. It was well done. So the fact that they're still making them, the fact that you can still do it low budget, the fact that some of them get noticed. Obviously, there's probably tons of them that don't. So I wouldn't consider myself a connoisseur of them, but I do enjoy them, especially when they work. But yeah, I would say, you can't go wrong with Paranormal Activity, right? I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I know you mentioned your kids kind of came around to asking you more about it, wanting to know more about it. But I can't imagine that they could ever really understand the phenomenon that happened with the release of the film. And obviously I'm not the first to say this in any way, but it's like when I saw the film, I guess I didn't know anything about it, especially didn't know that it wasn't real, which is obviously part of the marketing design of this thing. Yet to my understanding, after I watched the film, there were people, I don't know if some of my friends just wanted to be cool and be like, oh no, I knew it wasn't real.
Yeah.
But I definitely did not know it was real. And, I'm a huge horror fan, and I'm rarely scared by any films. There's films that can be creepy, creep me out. But I remember that I don't think I'll ever be as scared because I thought that was.
I love that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that feeling can be created no matter how much you might explain it to people that weren't there to kind of live that.
I would agree. The one regret I'd say I don't have a lot of regrets. I actually regret not having the feeling of being an audience member in 1999, walking in there blind to what I was about to watch, because I can't imagine what you go through as an audience member.
Yeah.
You honestly can't.
Yeah.
People were throwing up and, sick to their stomachs leaving the theater. You could hear, I did sneak into a couple theaters and watch the end of it, and you could hear a pin drop. It was a very strange, especially the music comes on. I get hit into the ground, and then Heather gets hit into the ground, and the camera goes off, and I just hear that spooky music, and it's over. And people just sat there in stunned silence. It was very interesting, but I never had the experience of, let's go watch a movie. Oh, what am I watching? Yeah.
Was there ever a documentary made about the making of Blair Witch? I know there was a Blair Witch Project too, but was there ever like a documentary made about the first one? Like The Exorcist, there was a documentary made about it.
There's footage for a documentary that somebody is working on.
Oh, good. You got your 30-year anniversary coming up. They haven't got it done of that.
Yeah, I know. It's a missed opportunity for the 25th, but it is what it is. Somebody has a bunch of stuff, and they're talking about trying to figure out how to get that going, which would be pretty neat. Pretty neat. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I can't believe it's like coming on 30 years.
I want to ask you and Kyle both. Have you seen Lake Mungo? That's one of my favorite. I call it a found footage.
Oh, I did see that. I liked it. I liked it. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say it was up there as my favorite, and I hate to do that on a podcast to say I don't like to say anything, because I think the acting honestly was really, really good in that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think what happened, in fairness, is a lot of people told me it. I do these horror conventions, from time to time. And so I asked fans, like, what's your favorite? And I heard that a few times, which is amazing for them. And it was very good, but I think I may have hyped it up in my brain a little bit too much.
It was a bit more of a complex story. Yours was more of a simple story to follow. It was a simpler storyline, even though the ending left you kind of like you weren't quite sure what happened.
Yeah, it did that too 2 or 3 times, and it did that well. Like, wait a minute, that's it? Oh, wait, that's not it. What's going on here? Yeah, I did like it.
So I got to tell you, if you had to go through hell for casting for this film, Kyle is much nicer on the casting, when it's time for his next films and stuff with his Salem House Pictures.
I've been wanting to do that. So, I mean, I guess for 20 years now, something like that. I know. Have to do it.
We got to do it. I won't work outside of SAG. That's the hard part.
Working with SAG, ups the budget. So it's not a big problem. It's just you got to come up with the money to figure it out.
Yeah, I think there's got to be some loopholes with SAG even where it's just like ultra low budget.
Yeah.
I've signed contracts with producers who do SAG because they really want to work with me, and I'm grateful for that. And they do this contract where basically I'm signing something that says we're SAG, but you have nothing.
Don't expect anything. Yeah.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, and for you, man, let's do something. It'd be so much.
I know. Listen, it's already in conversation. You've been
Kyle,
in multiple conversations already.
So. And congratulations on Popeye the Slayer, man. That's
thanks.
amazing.
Yeah, it's funny how it's panning out. Yeah.
So I interviewed the producers, Michael, on Popeye the Slayer, man. And then I interviewed the actors with Kyle. So it's been a couple of months, Kyle. How's it been doing?
It's been pretty solid. There's always like this secrecy on the distribution side of things. It's like, cause we don't have financial versus, I guess, like virality. It's been around the world, which is fantastic. I mean, how much can you really ask for a, low budget film like this? I mean, it's not a $200 million Blair Witch, of course, but it's played around the world. Probably more than we really expected. And people are talking about it. It's all over the internet and YouTube and everything. So on that, it's extremely successful. Now, financially, it's like, it's doing well. I don't know how well, because it just came out in March. So we're not privy to too much information yet. I mean, we'll do okay. We're definitely getting our money back in some. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's been fun. And, now we're shooting a treatment around right now. The script is probably going to be pen to paper next week because we want to film it in November, it looks like.
Nice.
So that's
person that helped you get there. That's
absolutely.
So Michael, and you can tell me it's none of my business, but do you still get residuals from Blair Witch Project?
I never did because of the non-union status.
It was non-union. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. So last year, actually, we kind of broke a story where they announced a new film. We made some noise about, hey, it wasn't always, wine and roses for us, and people were interested in that. So anybody who's interested, go back and look at Variety from last summer, Forbes, where they broke the story, and we did a lot of talking. But I won't get into it here and now, but I was kind of grateful for the opportunity for our story to kind of be heard, because I think it is important for young artists to go, hey, let me protect myself. You just kind of want the opportunity, and you don't have the means to think about anything else. It certainly aren't going to hire a lawyer to look at a 2-page contract, but in hindsight, boy, wouldn't that have been nice, So just young creators and actors, especially with YouTubers, and sounds like YouTube does the right thing by their people, but there's all these new applications for people to go out and make waves and become somebody that people are looking at. And there should be a monetary value to that your time is valuable and your creation is valuable. And I was sort of married when I was young to the idea of like the starving artist. And I no longer feel that a young person needs to ever be a starving artist. If they have talent that they're willing to put up for somebody's project, then everybody should make out in the end, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then quick, weird segue. Bob, unless you want to ask this question about personal paranormal experiences.
I was going to ask him, but go ahead. No, that's okay. It was just on my mind, Kyle, but go ahead, ask him.
Being that this is a paranormal podcast.
Yes.
Have you had any definitive experiences, or maybe just things that have happened that have you questioned that kind of thing? I don't know what your beliefs lie in.
I believe
say, the afterlife.
I believe in little kids being able to see things because they're that much closer to the other side, that much less jaded. I do think that there's something to be said for a young person looking at a beam of light or a corner or a spot where a relative used to sit in a curious way. I have some of that in my life, nothing definitive to say this time this thing happened, but I do believe it. To answer your question, I believe that, we're all energy, so I don't think energy really dies. I think there's a place the energy has to go. I think the body is just a vessel. That's getting, pretty deep into it, but I haven't had paranormal experiences that I feel are definitive. However, Kyle knows that I'm a big fisherman and I spend a lot of time in the woods, mostly these days fly fishing and hiking and, wading in rivers. But I also have a little John boat, which is a little non-motorized boat, 10-foot, 12-foot John boat with oars. And I'm out there on the reservoir, Kensico Reservoir over around White Plains area. And it's a dead, calm, quiet day. I've been fishing for a couple hours. I know the wind generally seems to start to pick up 10, 12 o'clock. But it was one of those hot, humid, you knew that it was stagnant. That nothing was going to move. There's also, in fairness, an airport right by the Westchester County Airport right by this reservoir. And I've also fished it for 10 years easily, really my whole life, but on a boat 10, 15 years. So I'm used to the way the wind is. I'm used to the trees all around. There was nothing. There was no airplane in sight, coming in, leaving, nothing. There was no wind at all. It was a dead calm day. And out of nowhere, I would say a half a football or a football field worth of tree tops. And by tops, I mean from where the leaves start to the top of the tree. If you all know the movie Predator, and it kind of
Yeah.
So it wasn't one animal. It was 50 yards of trees just isolated, though, that shimmered as if they were reflecting light or something, and were, I would say, the leaves were in a breeze, but it wasn't a breeze. It was so hard to discern, but it was 5 seconds, and if you count 5, it's long, and it's just doing this vibrational thing, this massive trees, and then there were trees all around it that weren't doing anything, and it just stopped, and the hairs literally stood. They're standing up on end right now as I think about it, and I'm gonna go home now.
Yeah, I was going to ask what you did.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I came home and I told Tony and my kids who were younger at the time, and I'm telling you, and they believe me because I'm like, I don't come home, make stuff up. I'm not.
Yeah, why would you
make that up? Yeah. I'm just telling you, this shit just happened. It was so freaking weird, and I wish I knew what it was, but I can't explain it. So
Did you go back there ever?
Oh, I fished there. I still fish there all the time, and I honestly want it to happen again, but because I'm kind of like, whoa. Maybe the next time they'll take me, Like,
yeah,
right. Yeah. I've seen all sorts of, I go down YouTube rabbit holes all the time, and there's some very similar things to what you've said that people have experienced. They catch on film, and sometimes it's some sort of. It's something as simple as they think Bigfoot's shaking the trees to some sort of dimensional being, or that even it's the earth itself and the trees having some sort of, I don't know, I'll use lack of a better word, power to, like there's just something experiencing the earth and, they didn't necessarily know you're there. Or
right. Like I just happened to be a witness and it didn't realize that I was over there or it didn't care. But it was something. It was something that wasn't. It was not an animal. It wasn't wind. It was too big and too massive and too. It was very, very strange. Very strange, but awesome at the same time.
Was it quiet? Was the wildlife like quiet, like dead quiet when that happened?
Yeah, there was nothing going on. There was nothing. It was just a hot, humid, still New York summer, July morning. Just like dead, like mucky, if I could put it that way. So, all
right. So we have a skeptic like you, Kyle. We'll have to get him go to one of your haunted houses that you're going to go do a documentary on and get him in there to witness a full body apparition or something.
True. That's true.
Check this out, my guys. You'll like this. My son comes home the other day and he's like, this is whatever, Sunday morning, because he's home from school for the summer. He's lifeguarding and working on some films actually, which is pretty cool. But what'd you do last night? Oh, we had an adventure last night. I said, oh, where'd you go? He says, we went and we visited an abandoned asylum. And I won't say where it was because you get in trouble to do that. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's code.
But him and like 4 buddies got in the car. They heard about it from a friend, and they got there and they took a camera and they walked around this abandoned asylum. And he said it was spooky as you know what.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. I said to myself, I wouldn't do that anymore because I just older and I'm definitely a little more afraid. But
wasn't that part of the cortex isn't formed yet?
Yes, that's right.
He can't figure out how much he can't assert like how much risk is involved yet.
That's definitely frontal lobe stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Did they capture anything, Michael?
He's going to cut together whatever. They didn't capture anything spooky, but they said like down in the basement area, there's 2 feet of old water.
Well, I have to tell you, so on this, we're near the end, but I was going to tell you, I've done like 130. Kyle's been on like maybe 20 or plus of these with me. And every once in a while when I'm editing and I hear back, because they're all different tracks, I'll hear EVPs. You know what EVPs are, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Electronic voice. I'll hear those bleeding through every once in a while. It's like, and some of them are creepy. Some are pretty bad.
Well, if you hear any on my end, please don't tell me.
Besides the Blair Witch Project, is there another project that you're working on now, or that, if we looked you up on IMDb, we should check out that film because you think it's really good and it's underappreciated or something?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple if that's cool. I would check out Altered. I think my favorite role I ever played was Altered. Also directed by Ed Sanchez. I want to say it was his sophomore film. We shot that down Universal Orlando. Some really good cast members. It's a cool story, good popcorn flick. It's a reverse alien abduction by a bunch of rednecks, and I really loved shooting that. And then recently I did a tiny little indie called Ghost Game that you can stream on Apple or Prime, and I'd love people to check that out. Jill Six directed it. She also directed a film called The Stylist that did very well. So Ghost Game is her sophomore film, and it was just really kind of run and gun fun indie film horror, I think, and again, popcorn flick. And right now I'm working on 6th Ave with a bunch of the crew who made the Terrifier movies.
I would love to interview that guy, Kyle. Was it Damien Leone or something?
Leone. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
You should.
Boy, if you could get an intro to Kyle and me at some point, but that would be great.
I don't know him, but I'm going to work with a lot of the people that worked with him that are putting this film together called 6th Ave. We're actually crowdfunding for that right now, so check that out on Instagram.
Yeah, you gave us some great Trivial Pursuit, stuff for the Blair Witch Project. The Kyle and I will win if it ever happens. We've got what was taco? We have the word taco.
That's right, taco.
Yeah. Maybe the 30th anniversary, they'll come up with a board game you could play.
Yeah, that'd be great. Michael, we really appreciate it. Michael C. Williams has been our guest tonight. Check out the films that he mentioned and go rewatch the Blair Witch Project because it really is. It's where the subgenre of found footage started. So, Kyle, Michael, thank you both so very much for being on the show tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure, guys.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit AfraidOfNothingPodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's AfraidOfNothingPodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode. And the world will know how swell you are.